So after driving Amazon's second headquarters from New York, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez is taking a victory lap by labeling the company's working conditions as dehumanizing and making the case that no civilized community should welcome Amazon into their ranks. Now, David Clark of Amazon has now fired back at Ms. Cortez and challenged her to come visit one of their plants to see for herself just how terrible their working conditions are. And he also noted that they are quite proud that they pay all their workers $15 an hour, which was a nice little dog whistle to the left, since that is their favorite number right now is 15. Some of you might recall the little fight for 15 demonstrations that have been going on in places like New York with the fast food workers. The general case that these folks make is that they're working for too little and they're basically slave wages, and that they want to be treated like real people and make a living wage. Now, of course, $15 an hour is still not a living wage in most of the country. You can't really live off of $15 times, 40 hours a week times 52 weeks. But nevertheless, even though they are getting paid less than it costs for them to sustain themselves on their own for a year, that's not the point of a wage. You don't get paid how much it costs you to live wherever you are. You get paid how much you produce, basically. Workers make their marginal product. So whether it costs you, $40,000 a year or $20,000 a year to sustain your standard of living, your employer is not going to pay you based on that. If you produce quite a bit for the employer and it's worth them to keep you around, they're going to make sure that they pay you what you're worth to them, even if that's more than you need. The same is true if you're making less than you need to sustain yourself. The employer is only going to pay you what you're worth to them. The same is true for Amazon and its workers. The reason why there are people who work at Amazon under whatever conditions they happen to work there is because the people who have accepted positions at Amazon feel that it is their best option. If their best option was not to work at Amazon, then they would choose to work somewhere else. You might say that, oh, well, that's not necessarily where they want to work, and ideally, ideally nobody wants to work. There's a disutility of labor, so ideally nobody would work anywhere, but we have to work because there's scarcity in the world, so we have to work in order to survive. You have to produce so you can consume. AOC can whine about that all she wants, but she's not going to make people's lives better by trying to drive out Amazon. All you're doing is you're going to make them then accept the next worst choice, or the next best choice after Amazon. So you're necessarily, if you drive Amazon out of your city and say to people, well, you shouldn't work there because it's a bad place to work, well, whoever would have chosen to work at Amazon would have chosen to work there because they had no better options. So that means you're making someone accept a worse option. Okay? So AOC is objectively making her constituents worse off. It's very easy for AOC, with her $174,000 a year salary, to look down from her ivory tower in Washington and criticize people for criticizing Amazon for employing these people under the conditions in which they do. But these people have no other options. Well, they might have other options, but they're going to have worse options. So for AOC to score cheap political points, she's condemning people to lives of additional misery, assuming that they are in misery to begin with. Now, that's completely that's assuming that everything she says is true and that it's a terrible place to work. I mean, who knows? It might be a great place to work. I don't know. I've never worked at Amazon. Part of this controversy is certainly Amazon's fault, though, because Amazon bowed to the $15 an hour mob, the Fight for 15 mob, and now they smell blood in the water, people like AOC. They see that Amazon has buckled once under pressure, and they think that they can make Amazon buckle to everything else until Amazon is basically a democratic socialist company, meaning until they basically hand out all their equity to the workers and let them make decisions and abolish the bosses. However, Amazon's responding well if they intend to make all this stop and go away, because they have pushed back a little bit and they have pulled out. They said, we're not going to take this abuse. We're leaving New York. You don't want us here, fine. And they're making these people suffer the consequences of their actions. They're making them, hopefully, her constituents will make it clear to her if some of them thought that they were going to benefit from this move from Amazon, that they are dissatisfied and that this will come back on her. because the parasites in Washington can't just always be allowed to pontificate and try and act holier than thou in front of all the people in the private sector who actually produce things, who actually pay their salaries. I mean, frankly, it would be insulting to be a low-wage worker and have AOC try and have my job destroyed because she thinks that I should work under better conditions. You know, it really makes me question how hard she must have had it in her 20s. I mean, I would have thought that maybe just coming out of working as a bartender, she'd maybe understand the plight of ordinary people a little better. But obviously she doesn't. She's just a basic pinko. She's basically no different from the right-wing pearl clutchers who try and come between gay married couples or between folks who want to engage in prostitution or folks who want to deal in marijuana with one another. She's coming between two consenting adults and telling them that what they're doing is wrong and that they shouldn't be up to it. And in the process, she's making them both worse off because they wouldn't have engaged in that sort of behavior if it wasn't in their best interest anyway. She's claiming that she is some omniscient, godlike force that knows what's best for everyone, and wants to protect everyone from themselves. If she really wants to protect people, why doesn't she try calling out the military's work in Yemen? They've done quite a number there, both the Saudis and the Americans and the UAE. She also could try and bring about peace in Syria or any of these other conflicted areas of the world. If you really want to stop people from suffering, the real suffering is those who live in war zones, not those who maybe don't make as much money as you, who don't make $174,000 a year off of stolen income, i.e. taxes. If you want to make a better world, you need more people engaged in voluntary cooperation to make each other's lives better, not less of it. If you've made it this far, please consider liking or subscribing, or both. I'd much appreciate it. I'm still down at one sub as of the recording of this, and I've only been around for a week as of today, but I think I'm plodding along well, and going to be a slow grind, but hopefully I'll get myself established on here. Thanks.